House of Dulcet. It's so great to see you all. Oh my gosh. Have you guys seen each other since like the filming of the show?
A little
A
bit in
little
and
bit.
around. Yeah.
In and around.
I've
Not
been
I. I'm too
slowly,
far.
Yeah.
I've been slowly trying to get everybody out to Halifax. So we've got Amara and Michaela out here already, but Justin's next on the list, so we got to get him out here too. But yeah,
Yeah, this is like the one house where it's literally like it's really is coast to coast.
yeah.
We said coast to coast talent, baby.
Yep, coast to coast. And how was it being like in a house? How was the dynamic?
Oh, I hate
I
them all.
think
No, I'm kidding.
it felt really good off the start. Hey, like all of a sudden it was House of Dual Sex and everybody was yummy and super tasty together. So
We
yeah,
were very delicious as a house. I think
yeah.
we represented the house name quite accurately. And we really sort of rolled with that vibe. We seemed to click in terms of our energies really easily together, and then just kind of like found out that we all share a single brain cell and we're just rolling with the ideas that everyone was bringing up at any given time. It was a lot of fun.
Well said.
I mean, Michaela, you're like you're part of the House of Couture and now the House of Dulcet, right?
Yes, yes, I am.
Wow, and like what are some of the what would you consider some of the differences to be?
I'd say honestly, I feel like they're both houses are like super chaotic, one. And both houses serve sex, sex, sex. So like isn't much of a difference. I think the only obvious difference would be that in this group there is, of course, we have a lovely drag king, and with the couture house, it's like we're all trans, and then there's Isis. So
And then there's Isis.
And then there's Isis.
And Justin, I mean, what was it like to be a drag king to learn from a drag queen like Peppermint?
Uh, hmm. It was incredible actually, because well, since I started drag, this sort of learning from others is something I've been looking for. So getting to be in a house, and no matter if it was a king or a queen who was my parent, it was invaluable advice, like stuff you can't learn from just watching shows. Uh, Having one-on-one time and getting coached on things like runway and presentation and how to bring energy to the stage, that was incredible. So Peppermint gave so much amazing advice.
I mean, we can just talk about Peppermint just for a minute, everybody. Like what were some of the big takeaways you learned from her to the rest of you?
Other than she is an absolute friggin' icon in so many ways, she really put in the energy to like make sure that she was being the best parent to each of us and each of our needs specifically. And I think that speaks a lot to her like wanting to raise a sense of kind of like business mindedness in drag performers to make sure that they have a really long, like successful, lucrative career that appeals to like their sensibilities, their aesthetics, the type of performance or art that they want to create. Like there was a lot of layers in what she was doing in a very like simple presentation that spoke of her being a really seasoned entertainer, performer, activist, and like a really good teacher and mentor as a whole.
100%, I agree. I mean, I think, going on to the show, we all watched it last season, and, you think, okay, what's for TV and what's not for TV? And I was pleasantly surprised to see how involved she was with the process. And it wasn't just, okay, we're going to coach you for these, 2 minutes that you're on camera. When the cameras were cut, she was there making sure that we had everything that we needed. And to Amara's point, like answering any questions that we've had and just like little pieces of tidbits and stuff like that. I remember on our first day, she brought us like a bunch of makeup and she was like,
Oh
here, take
yeah.
this. And yeah, like it was
Oh my
definitely like
God.
a motherly influence for sure. And it's nice to see that relationship go on even after the show.
Yeah. I think for me, I almost like in a sense regret my in a bit of a way, I regret my time, how I spent my time there, because I wish I asked more questions from Peppermint. I think out of everyone, I probably left with the least amount of like acknowledge that I absorbed, but from the stuff that I did get from her, Peppermint was phenomenal and really amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it must be like just being on a TV show and how quick everything is. Like it's a pretty overwhelming experience. So it makes sense to think back and kind of feel like you've missed like a couple opportunities per se.
Yeah.
But like that first, when you found out there was 15 people, like talk about that first day in the workroom when there was literally 15 artists in the room.
Mayhem.
Chaos.
I mean, here's the thing, like we flew in, some of us were there for 24 hours before we filmed. Some people were there for like 5 days beforehand. And like, you're like cooped up in a hotel room. You don't know who's going to be there, if you're going to know anybody, what the process is going to look like. And then you get this instant relief when you can finally meet the cast. You're like, oh my God, there's so many of us. And then in the same breath, they're like 3 people are going home. I remember I just like clenched up. I'm like, I got to go to the chiropractor after this because I am so on edge. But yeah, I mean, it was nerve-wracking, but I mean, at the same time, it was like, for me anyway, I just went into like battle mode and I was like, I need to like do what I need to do to survive this first week and make sure that I get into a house.
Yeah.
Definitely. It was also really cool to be able to sort of like meet people twice, because we all met each other out of drag first, and then there was a whole chaos of like, oh, surprise, 3 of you are going home. So it really won't be until like you get adopted that you'll be able to spend time with these people in and out of drag and get to see sort of like their craft, how they present themselves both ways. But the initial meeting of everyone was pure like joyful chaos. To have 15 drag artists from across the country in the same room together being able to showcase themselves was so cool.
Yeah, I mean, like that. It's Calling Weather's a very unique drag show in the sense that it's like kind of working with the way that drag's evolving, and stuff, and just kind of seeing all these different perspectives. And we kind of like don't like we kind of look behind the curtain a lot more than I feel like other drag shows do. So, but was even with that being said, was there anything that surprised you when you like about the show when you got there, about the process?
Everything. I did not feel prepared mentally at all and that's just on me for not asking more questions. But yeah, everything surprised me for what it would be like on sets and how quickly things move, like you said before, and going from this is your challenge to okay, now you got to get into drag, and whoop, you got to get mic'd, and whoop, you got to go do the talking head thing. And yeah, it was huge learning curve, but it was exciting. It was just, yeah, everything was very chaotic and new.
What would you say like drawed you to the show? Like after watching season 1 of Calling Mother, what was it about Calling Mother that made you want to be on the show?
Well, I had actually auditioned for season 1, but that was when no one knew what the name was, didn't even know what the show was at all or anything. And I didn't even know who I was. So when I got to see season 1, I was like, thank God I didn't do that season. Thank God. Because if I did, I definitely would have been a Rosie and would have been out by episode 2. And there's I
coming in correct, baby.
Girl. I think that after seeing season 1, I really thought that there was no one on that season that was like me as far as my charisma and my talent and my beauty. I don't think anyone has what I have, so I was like, I might as well bring that to the TV screen.
You said season 1 was busted. You said season 1 was busted, and let me improve the quality of this entire production by showing up for season 2.
She said, let me do some charity service and let
me do some charity service.
Oh my God, Michaela. Read them.
Iconic. Mm-hmm. I think the thing that drew it to me was there was so much less of a disconnect, despite it being a reality TV show, between like how Call Me Mother is presented and how drag works in the real world. Like it felt like it was using much more of the skill set that I already had in terms of like, you are in a house. Yes, it's an individual competition at the end of the day, but like it is a collaborative effort. And like out in the real world, you're putting on shows with fellow performers, you're working on creating productions, you're doing all those things is like, how do we find a synergy? Where it's just like, how can we work together and also showcase ourselves to the best of our ability? And I wanted to showcase myself as well, because I've been doing this for 8 years, which is a long time. And I think I've learned a thing or two about how to be a pretty fierce drag performer. So why not give the world a chance to see that?
Yes,
Right.
yes,
And,
you are.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And Amar, you're based in Toronto, right?
I am, despite all of my best efforts.
Toronto is like, there's just so much drag. Like, how do you stay above water? I guess, like, how do you keep afloat?
It's been really interesting seeing the drag scene change in Toronto in the time that I've been doing it, because there used to be a lot more competitions based within the city, and that was kind of how you got yourself seen. That was how you got yourself out there, and they were kind of traditional, uh, usually female impersonation pageant formats. So it was, you would go to this venue, you would compete for a night, and you would be seen by various other bar owners, like promoters, people who did events, and that would be just like, okay, cool, I've seen you do this, I want to book you for an event, or I want to give you like a spotlight. And that's sort of fallen by the wayside a little bit more, but has been taken up by open stages. So there's an opportunity for performers of all varieties to come out and showcase themselves within the city. And from there, you get more opportunities to be seen and booked by the bars hosting them, or by people who are in the audience. So I was of the era, the generation back in my day, where you had to perform, like you had to compete to be seen. And as much as I realized that, like, that's taught me a lot about how I approach drag and how I approach sort of like business side of my career and how I perform even, I think it's really interesting and it's really exciting that there are all of these open stage opportunities, and there are more opportunities like Call Me Mother, where it's much more collaborative and it's much more diverse in its showcasing of drag.
Right. And Maya, like, how, like, based on that, like, you're also in Halifax, what's the drag scene like there?
It's, yeah, wildly different. Wildly different. So yeah, so I mean, the Halifax drag scene I always describe as kind of small but mighty. There's some queens and kings and non-binary performers that have been doing this for decades here. There's kind of a new wave of performers that are coming up as well, which I would consider myself part of. But we're kind of in a unique situation where we lost all of our queer bars during the pandemic. So there was not a dedicated space for drag in Halifax or in Nova Scotia, really. So what we had to do is really kind of fight and be tenacious and find spaces so that we can continue doing what we do. So whether that's, partnering with, local hotels or restaurants or straight bars or other venues to try to keep it going, it's definitely been a struggle, but we've kept the scene alive. And, we now have a new gay bar that just opened up, or new queer space in the last 2 weeks. So that's really exciting. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think, in terms of the scene itself, there's so much talent on the East Coast, and we haven't really seen any of that until this season of Call Me Mother, right? We've never had a maritime performer, on TV. So, oftentimes people think, there's nothing happening out here. I'm here to say, yes, there is. And there's lots of talent out here for sure.
Even in Dartmouth?
Maybe not Dartmouth. That's even Dartmouth. Oh my God. Amara came out to visit at one point, and I took her over to Dartmouth, which is like on the other side of the bridge, the other side of the tracks. And I was like, okay, we're going to do this bar gig, and you're not going to judge me for what it's like out here. And then you went to the other gig and you understood.
Bitch, you literally called it to the dark side. Don't be putting this on me. I was a guest in your house.
It is the dark side. Anyway, you're going to get me canceled before the show even starts. All right.
And Justin, I mean, like, I feel like there's a lot of people think that, like, they consider like a drag king kind of like a newer concept, but what would you consider to be some of like your inspiration?
Oh boy. When I started doing it, the very first time I had seen a drag king was in 2018. So I was really hidden away from all of the culture. So I feel very late to the game, and I came across everything really slowly, but seeing my first drag king was like, and then Landon Sider, Spiky Van Dyke, and a few others that really brought hypermasculinity to the screen helped a lot. And then just online, there are so many kings. The UK, Victoria. There are so many kings around, and more keep showing up. So it's a beautiful thing, honestly, to see so many kings coming onto the scene and playing with gender, but there are so many kings that also play with the non-binary side of the art form too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so amazing. Late Insider is also on the panel this season. It's just huge because obviously drag kings have been around for a long time as well. So it's about damn time.
Yes, there's a drag
Yeah.
king who's a friend of mine who's been doing this for 40 years. And yeah, they basically made gay spaces safe for women in Vancouver, because when she was a drag king in the 1980s, she was Mr. Gay Vancouver, and there were signs on all the gay bars that were basically no fish, like you're not welcome here. And she was allowed in, but her entourage wasn't, and so she fought for the right for these women to come into gay bars. And it wasn't that long ago, which is just wild to me. And so, but she was also from an area or a time frame where she didn't wear a lot of makeup. It was just like, she would talk about shaving the hair on her head and gluing it to her face, and it was a different aesthetic for sure. But the work that she did was so inspiring, and I was really lucky to get to know her through being Mr. Gay Vancouver. So, but they've been around forever. They just don't have the same spotlight, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we're trying to get to a better place there for sure.
Absolutely.
And then, okay, I guess my next question for all of you would be, what did you learn about yourself from the experience?
Ooh. You go through it. I guess I'll pipe up first, but you go through it. Like we've all watched reality TV, and you sit at home and you say, I would have did this, or they should have done this, or I can't believe this is their reaction. And it's a completely different experience being on the other side of it. I mean, to be removed from your friends and family and your support system, and to even be able to like pick up your phone and like double check a reference. Like, you can't do that when you're in this competition, right? So you really have to rely on yourself. So what I would say is, like, you get to learn about yourself much more deeply when you're put into a situation like that, right? You have to trust your instincts. You can't get into your head. And, I think we all, throughout this process got into our head at one point or another, and it's about kind of talking yourself through that. But I mean, the biggest thing that I would say that I learned personally is that, I am enough, and I can compete, and I do bring something of value, right? I think, kind of coming from the East Coast and, being the first person from Nova Scotia to compete, it's like that, those kinds of things get into your head. Like, can I measure up to the rest of Canada? Do I deserve a spot here? Those types of things. And, evidently, I'm in the House of Dulcet, and I did the thing, and Peppermint saw something in me. And, that just kept me going even after the show to kind of take that home with me. So yeah, I think it's just, getting in tune with yourself, turning that negative voice off, if you will. And when that does come up, like, how do you overcome that, and how do you move forward?
I think the most sort of profound thing I learned about myself is that there is a surprising amount of strength in sharing your knowledge and sharing your experience and sharing your generosity, because I showed up to the competition with, I think, some of the most experience in drag, and being able to impart that onto other people and see them sort of like take on suggestions and ideas and things that I had, been through in my experience with drag, and learn from those without having to go through the experiences that I did. It's just like, great, you're going to get somewhere way faster than I did, and you're going to see yourself continue to grow and explore and expand in a really fantastic way. And that gave me kind of a sense of belonging in the way that Maya was talking about, where it's just like, I don't know if, being in the Toronto drag scene for 8 years has done anything to like establish myself or, keep my head above water in any kind of way. So to be able to have shared all of that space and that time, that energy, and learn from all of these incredible performers was my favorite part of the experience, I would say.
And I just had to say on that point, I mean, Amara really did come through for all of us, like both in the House of Dulcet and the entire cast. Like we were always running over to her makeup table and saying, girl, what do you think of this? Or like, you know, do you have any ideas, this and that? And like whether it was just, you know, an idea to finesse a makeup look or, you know, a pep talk or loaning some insight. I mean, for me personally, I appreciated everything that you had to say, and, you know, you made my experience so much better.
There was also the emotional support breasts.
Oh, yes.
So
The greatest thing sorry, can I change my answer? The greatest thing that I learned is that everybody loves a great pair of titties, and they don't even have to be yours. You can get them online.
The emotional support titties. Oh my God, that's awesome.
Would you like to see them? I can go get them real quick.
Yes, yes, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's
okay, give me 1 second. I'll be right back.
Stop.
So was everyone going up to these? Like, I need to hear more about these emotional support
So
titties.
she
Oh my
had this
God, we should
fabulous
all
breastplate.
there
and
was, yeah.
with the breastplate is, you know, there's 2 breasts. So you lay your head on one of them and then you can squeeze the other one like a stress ball.
Okay. This is very informative for me personally as well.
Okay.
You know, it's my time. Fuck meditation.
Checkings and savings.
Screw podcast. Get yourself a pair of breasts.
Okay.
Here they
So
are.
what needs to be known is that I would be wearing this, and then these work also fantastically as a neck pillow if I'm behind you.
Absolutely.
So you can just tuck yourself in right here and then like take a nap on either side.
Yep.
But if you're having a bad day, you just a little squeeze. You just give them a little love. And that's it.
Okay. Well, I'm also in Toronto, so I'll be coming over for those.
Great.
Really
My rates
works.
are incredibly reasonable.
It really works.
Good to know. Good to know. Do I get the OUTtv discount though?
Sure.
Perfect. Perfect.
It'll just be $10,000 instead of 25.
Done. Easy. Okay. My next question is why, like, what do you hope that people see from you on the show? Like, what do you hope the audience see from you?
I think at first when I first came, when I was like, while we were filming, I think I wanted everyone to take me seriously, across Canada. Because obviously Toronto, everyone knows how I am when it comes to my drag. I'm very businesswoman. I'm very on top of shit. I take my drag very seriously. And I want to make sure that all of Canada could experience that. But now I'm kind of just at a point where I'm like, I just want people to see that like I can have fun. It's like everything's shits and giggles. I'm here for a good time, and that's all.
I'm very much on the same page as Michaela. Like, I want to show up and be just like, yes, this is here. I have my like aesthetics in line. I have my performance in line. Like, I'm going to do the like reality TV thing where people are going to rewatch this and be just like, that was fierce. That was history making. And turns out I'm just a giant idiot who like likes to play dress up and have fun with my friends.
Yeah.
I hope that people see a bit of themselves, the imperfections, but the striving for doing better and learning from everybody and every opportunity. That was huge for me going on to the show, was feeling like I get to show up for other kings, but also show up for women and women of a certain age, you know, going after things and not letting stuff like neurodivergence and age stop you from going after those things. So yeah, that's what I kind of hope people see.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing with me, you know. I hope they get to see everything, you know. Obviously, there's serious parts, you know, that you get to show, and there's talent, and then there's the crunchy bits, and, you know, the stuff where you screw up or make an idiot of yourself or say something funny, you know, so it's all of it. Side note, don't buy strappy shoes for the runway. That's one thing I would advise not to do. But yeah, and then, you know, to Justin's point, I hope that people get to see some of themselves in me, not Michaela's dying. But yeah, like you can be from a tiny, small, homophobic town and, you know, be a fierce drag queen on TV. I also, you know, hope that, you know, I represent for all the Inuit across Canada as well. Get to see a little bit of that on TV, rep for my culture. But yeah, it's, I mean, I'm just excited to see, you know, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the strappy shoes.
And the
What's-
drag writing.
Yeah.
God,
You and these damn shoes. Oh my God.
the shoes.
Oh my gosh. I feel like I kind of want to ask more about the shoes, but I also don't know
You
what
just
will be
need to know that
spoiler
there's
or what.
I
Maya
don't know
has
when this
Allison
is
a
airing,
condom.
so we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's also like, how do you figure out like what your look is like? I always think about, okay, I would love to maybe do drag one day, but I have no idea how I would start fashion wise. How I would even figure out a look.
I think you need to know what your general aesthetic is. Like, if you want to go for a specific look, get the vibe of who the persona you are trying to personify. Like, I try to understand who that person is, get an idea of the aesthetic. Because if you're like going for like model-esque vibes, then you're obviously gonna look up like a bunch of inspiration of like famous models, Naomi Campbell, the list goes on. But if you want to go for a bit more grunge, et cetera, that's really going to change it up. So like get the aesthetic and then you can go from there on like what you think you would like to wear, I guess.
Mm.
And I feel like don't commit yourself to just that because it'll evolve as you play and grow, right? Yeah. Because
The other thing is just like just do it too. I know so many people like I had a friend recently that was like looking to try drag and he almost had like the gas and the brake on at the same time. It was like he felt like he had to have everything figured out before he did it the first time. And I have to have my aesthetic completely down and I need to, know how to sew and know how to do wigs. I'm like, I don't even know how to do all that stuff. And I'm doing this for, you know what I mean? But you need to start somewhere. So if it's, if you can get yourself on your hands on a cheap bodysuit, and then maybe there's something that you can add to it that will fit that aesthetic. So don't feel like you need to have some sort of like crazy avant-garde garment the first time you ever go out there. Just do it and then start adding as you go, and it'll evolve.
Yeah. Or I'm just gonna sneak over to that incredibly talented salon crew.
Yeah, truly. We'll put you together real quick. Don't you worry.
Yeah. Okay, so my last question, kind of a big one. So we can take a second before the answer, but why is drag so important?
Drag is important because it really allows not even just queer people, but people in general to let their inner fantasies out. I know for me, I always tell people I started drag the moment I was born because drag was always there for me. I just never had a name or an idea of like what that specific thing was. So drag is really just allowing people to express that inner child that's been wanting to come out, but just never got the opportunity to.
Yeah, I would say drag is so important to me and I think to the world and society as a whole because it, I don't know if forces is the right word, but it like presents opportunities for people to question, discover, and explore themselves and the world around them in a very sort of deliberate way. It makes you take what's going on in the world around you, what you're seeing, what you're feeling, how your relationships are, and it makes you think about them and examine them. But that's not all it does. It can also just be pure entertainment and aesthetics. It is a fully fledged art form, and this is a world that needs art, and it needs queer art, and it needs diverse art.
Yes, I love that. I like to kind of go off of what Amara is saying. Like, I think, society forces us all or tries to force us all into this box, right? And if you're a man or you're a woman or you're this, then you need to be this way. Or if you're from this place, you need to be this way. And I think for so many years, for me personally, I tried to fit within the parameters of that box and I tried to play the game, if you will. And what I think drag does is it just shatters that box, right? As soon as you start, you get into drag, you start experimenting with makeup and looks and all of this. It's like you are so far out of what society is expecting of you. You have the freedom to do whatever you want. And I think that there's so much power in that. And it's really how you get in touch with who you are as a person and what your message is. And, you know, to Amara's point, it can be something as simple as, you know, you want to go out and you want to serve something beautiful. Maybe there's something political that you're trying to say. Maybe there's, you know, some other message behind, you know, your drag, but it really allows you to get in touch with yourself at that deepest level, and gives you the ability to explore. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I can't honestly say anything better than the three of them just said. The freedom of expression, the ability that there are so many different levels, and that they're all great. And whatever you want to bring to the table, if it's spooky or if it's gorgeous or if it's handsome or beautiful, whatever you want to bring is your expression, and you get to show it this way, and there's room for all of it. I love that about drag. It's been the most amazing thing to watch. And you learn about not comparing yourself to others too, because you are unique. There's only one you and the way that you do things. And that really shines through in drag. And when you go to shows and you see 10 different people doing 10 different aesthetics or styles, it's heartwarming.
Just looking at this beautiful house, it just all of you are so unique, and I just can't wait to see that the whole world is going to be able to experience it all. It's going to be really great. All right, well, bye, House of Dulcet. Thanks.
Bye. So nice to see you all.
Bye.